Emily paced nervously in the sterile waiting room, the harsh fluorescent lights casting a pallid glow over her anxious face. Her heart raced, a relentless drumbeat echoing the cacophony of emotions swirling within her. The news had been devastating. Her father, Robert, a man known for his robust spirit and unwavering strength, had been in a terrible accident. The words replayed in her mind like a haunting refrain. He's alive, but he's paralyzed. She glanced at her phone, willing the doctor to appear with answers, her fingers drumming against the cool plastic of the chair. Minutes felt like hours as the sterile scent of antiseptic filled her lungs. Just then, the door swung open, and a doctor in a crisp white coat stepped forward, his expression somber yet compassionate. "Miss Emily?" he asked, scanning the room until his gaze landed on her. She stood up, her heart thumping loudly in her chest. "I'm Dr. Miller. I need to talk to you about your father. Is he going to be okay?" Emily stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Miller gestured for her to follow him to a quieter corner of the waiting area. "Your father sustained severe injuries in the accident. Fortunately, he survived, but he has suffered a spinal cord injury. He's currently unconscious, but we anticipate he will wake up soon. However, the paralysis he's facing will require extensive rehabilitation." Emily felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Paralyzed? What does that mean for him? For us, it means he will need help with basic functions, and the road to recovery will be long and challenging, the doctor explained, his tone reassuring yet firm. "We have a team of specialists who will assist him, but I strongly recommend that you consider hiring a caregiver who can provide support at home." Emily nodded, her mind racing. She thought of her father's pride, his laughter ringing through their home, and the way he always found a solution to every problem. "I can't lose him," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to be there for him." Dr. Miller offered a sympathetic smile. "We understand this is a difficult time. Focus on being there for him when he wakes up. In the meantime, we'll do everything we can to ensure he receives the best care." With a heavy heart, Emily made her way to her father's room. The sight of him lying there, pale and still, sent a fresh wave of panic coursing through her. She approached the bed, her hand trembling as she took hold of his. "Dad, it's me, Emily," she whispered. "I'm here. We're going to get through this together." Hours turned into days as Robert lay in the hospital, drifting between consciousness and unconsciousness. Emily spent every moment by his side, reading to him and sharing stories from their past, hoping he could hear her. But it was when the doctor finally informed her that Robert had stabilized enough to go home that a new wave of anxiety washed over her. She needed to ensure her father received the best care possible. Determined, Emily began the search for a caregiver. She spent hours researching and interviewing potential candidates, sifting through resumes and recommendations. Each interview felt like a new layer of stress. She had to find someone she could trust with her father's well-being. One afternoon, as Emily sifted through a pile of applications, a particular name caught her eye: Sarah Mitchell. The recommendation letter was glowing, describing Sarah as compassionate, experienced, and dedicated. Emily felt a flicker of hope as she dialed the number listed. "Hello, this is Sarah," a warm voice answered. "Hi, Sarah. This is Emily, Robert's daughter. I'm looking for someone to help care for my father at home. I was impressed by your credentials and wanted to see if we could schedule an interview. Of course, I would love to meet you and your father. When would be a good time?" They arranged to meet that Saturday morning, and as the day approached, Emily felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. She hoped Sarah would be the right fit, someone who could ease her father's transition back home. On the day of the interview, Emily prepared their living room, making it comfortable and welcoming. When Sarah arrived, she was greeted by a woman in her 30s, with gentle eyes and a reassuring smile that instantly put Emily at ease. "Hi, Emily," Sarah said, extending her hand. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming, Emily replied, inviting her to sit. I've been really worried about my dad. He's going to need a lot of support. I understand completely, Sarah said, her voice soothing. Could you tell me a bit about what your father needs? As Emily talked about Robert's condition, she found herself drawn to Sarah's empathetic demeanor. The caregiver listened intently, nodding and asking thoughtful questions. Sarah spoke about her experience with other patients, detailing how she had helped them adapt to their new lives post-injury. I believe in building a strong rapport with my patients, Sarah explained. It's essential for their recovery. I want to ensure that your father feels comfortable and safe. Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. I think you'd be a great fit. I just want him to feel like he's still in control, you know? Absolutely. I'll work with him to help him regain as much independence as possible, Sarah reassured her. By the end of the interview, Emily was convinced. I'd like to hire you, Sarah. I believe my father will be in good hands. Thank you, Emily. I promise I won't let you down, Sarah replied, her smile genuine. As the days passed, Sarah began working with Robert at home. Emily watched as the two formed a connection, Robert's face softening in Sarah's presence. It was heartwarming to see her father relax for the first time since the accident. Sarah's gentle encouragement helped him engage in physical therapy exercises, and slowly, Emily saw glimpses of the man he used to be. However, as time went on, Emily began to notice small inconsistencies. Items around the house would go missing, only to turn up in unusual places. Sarah would sometimes seem distracted, her gaze lingering on Robert a moment too long, as if she were assessing him in a different light. One evening, while preparing dinner, Emily overheard Sarah speaking softly to Robert, her tone overly sweet, yet somehow unsettling. You're doing so well, Mr. Collins. Just a little more effort, and you'll be back on your feet in no time. Emily's heart sank as she listened from the kitchen, a nagging feeling forming in her gut. Was Sarah as dedicated as she claimed to be? Or was there something darker lurking beneath her warm facade? Shaking her head, Emily tried to dismiss her doubts, reminding herself how much her father needed help. But as the days turned into weeks, the feeling of unease only deepened, and she found herself torn between trusting Sarah and protecting her father at all costs. Emily stood in the doorway of her father's room, her heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. The once vibrant man who had built an empire now lay in silence, a shell of his former self. Weeks had passed since the accident, and although Robert was alive, the spark in his eyes seemed to dim with each day. Sarah, the caregiver Emily had hired, was diligent and attentive, but something about her presence gnawed at Emily's instincts. It was subtle, a whisper at the back of her mind, urging her to pay closer attention. Dad, how are you feeling today? Emily asked, stepping inside with a tentative smile, as if hoping to draw out some semblance of the man she knew. Robert turned his head slowly, his expression a mixture of fatigue and frustration. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Instead, he let out a soft sigh, and Emily could see the effort it took him to form thoughts. It broke her heart. I know it's tough, but we'll get through this together, she said, her voice steady, though her insides twisted with worry. I'll be here every step of the way. Just then, Sarah entered the room, her demeanor cheerful as she approached Robert with a practiced ease. Good morning, Mr. Hastings. Ready for your exercises? Robert glanced at Emily, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. Emily nodded, though a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Sarah's tone was overly bright, almost forced. It was as if she was trying too hard to create an atmosphere of positivity. Just a little stretching today, Sarah continued, adjusting the straps on Robert's wheelchair. Nothing too strenuous. Emily watched as Sarah gently maneuvered Robert into position, her hands moving with an expert touch. Yet, the more Emily observed, the more she felt something was amiss. Robert's responses were becoming increasingly subdued, as if he were fading away under Sarah's care rather than thriving. Later that evening, as Emily sat alone in the living room, the shadows from the setting sun danced across the walls. She couldn't shake the feeling that the changes in her father were not solely due to his condition. She recalled a moment from earlier that week when she had come home to find Robert unusually agitated, his eyes darting nervously around the room. It was just a fleeting moment, but it had left a lingering doubt in her mind. "Maybe I'm just overreacting," she muttered to herself, attempting to shake off her unease. But deep down, the feeling of dread was growing, wrapping its tendrils around her heart. The next day, driven by maternal instinct, Emily made a decision that felt both necessary and invasive. As she walked through the house, she felt the weight of the hidden cameras she had purchased just hours earlier. "It's for his safety," she reassured herself, the words echoing in her mind. She set them up in corners of the living room and near Robert's bedroom, ensuring they would capture everything without drawing attention. That evening, Emily sat in the dark, a tight knot forming in her stomach as she prepared to review the footage. The red light of the camera blinked ominously, marking the beginning of her surveillance. She couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt, but the thought of her father suffering under Sarah's care pushed her forward. As she navigated through hours of mundane footage, her heart raced. Sarah entered the frame, her demeanor seemingly caring and attentive. But as the days progressed, Emily could see the subtle changes in Robert's behavior. He became more withdrawn, his laughter replaced by a heavy silence. It was heartbreaking to watch. And then she saw it. In a clip from earlier that week, Sarah was in the process of administering Robert's medications. Emily leaned closer to the screen, her breath catching in her throat. "No, this can't be happening," she whispered. Sarah was adjusting the dosage, taking liberties with the medications that no caregiver should. The implications of what she was witnessing sent a chill down Emily's spine. "No, no, no," Emily murmured, her mind racing. This was more than just neglect. It was manipulation. The very thought made her stomach churn. She felt her heart pounding in her chest, the urgency of the situation crashing over her like a wave. She needed to confront Sarah, but how could she do that without solid proof? The next day, Emily's determination solidified into a plan. She would gather evidence, meticulously documenting everything Sarah did with Robert. She knew that confronting her without proof would be futile. "I have to be smart about this," she reminded herself as she scribbled notes about the medication schedule, the changes she had observed, and her father's declining mood. As days turned into a blur of anxiety and vigilance, Emily felt trapped in a web of secrecy. Every interaction between Sarah and Robert was laced with tension, and she could feel the walls closing in on her. Each time Sarah smiled at her father, Emily's stomach twisted. She had witnessed the caregiver's charming facade, but now it felt like a mask hiding something sinister. One evening, as Emily sat with Robert, she attempted to engage him in conversation. "Dad, do you trust Sarah?" she asked, her voice steady but her heart pounding. Robert's brow furrowed, and after a long pause, he finally responded, She's nice, Emily." His voice was barely a whisper, and Emily struggled to read his expression. Did he truly believe that? Or was it just a reflection of his condition? "Just nice," she pressed gently, trying to gauge his feelings. "Does she help you with everything you need?" "She does what she can," he replied, his voice trailing off. Emily could see the uncertainty in his eyes, and her chest tightened with frustration. It was as if he was caught in a fog, unable to fully articulate his thoughts. After their conversation, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed to confront Sarah, but she had to be careful. The last thing she wanted was to escalate the situation without evidence to back her suspicions. That night, Emily lay in bed, her mind racing. She thought about the hidden cameras, the footage she had yet to review, and the evidence she still needed to collect. As she drifted into an uneasy sleep, she promised herself that she would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The following morning, she awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. She would gather enough evidence to confront Sarah and protect her father. As she made her way to the living room, she felt a surge of determination coursing through her veins. This was for Robert, her father, her protector. She would not let anyone, even a caregiver, take that away from her. With each passing day, the tension in the household grew thicker. Emily's instinct screamed that she was running out of time. She could feel the clock ticking down, and she steeled herself for the confrontation that loomed ahead. Whatever it took, she would fight for her father's safety and well-being. The love she had for him would guide her through the darkness that Sarah had cast upon their lives. Emily paced the living room, her heart pounding in her chest. The evening light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a soft glow that did little to calm her racing mind. Sarah had been in the house for weeks now, and though she initially seemed like a godsend, the unsettling changes in her father's demeanor haunted Emily. She had seen the hidden camera footage, and now she felt a surge of determination. It was time to confront Sarah. Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself for the confrontation. The sound of the clock ticking echoed in her ears as she walked down the hallway toward her father's room, where Sarah was currently attending to Robert. Emily knocked lightly before entering, but the sight that greeted her was both heart-wrenching and infuriating. Sarah was adjusting Robert's pillow, her smile bright and disarming, as if everything was perfectly normal. "Emily," Sarah exclaimed, her voice dripping with warmth. "I was just helping your father get comfortable for the evening. Can we talk, Sarah?" Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "In private?" "Of course," Sarah replied, her smile faltering for just a second. "What's on your mind?" Emily motioned for Sarah to step outside the room, and as soon as the door clicked shut behind them, the tension in the air thickened. "I've been reviewing the footage from the cameras," Emily stated bluntly, her gaze unwavering. Sarah raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Footage? What footage? Don't play games with me, Sarah," Emily said, her voice sharp. "I know what you've been doing with my father's medication. You're manipulating his schedule. It's affecting him." For a moment, Sarah's expression shifted, a flicker of something darker passing across her face before she regained her composure. "Emily, you must be mistaken. I would never do anything to harm Robert. I care about him deeply." "Do you?" Emily shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Because I've seen him change. He's withdrawn, and it started when you came into our lives. It's not a coincidence. People change when they face such a traumatic experience," Sarah countered, her tone growing defensive. "Your father is going through a lot. You should be focusing on supporting him, not accusing me of something so terrible." Emily clenched her fists at her sides, her mind racing. She wanted to scream, to shake Sarah until the truth spilled out, but she knew she had to remain composed. "I'm not accusing you without reason. I'm trying to protect my father. This isn't just about care anymore. It's about trust." "Trust?" Sarah's voice dripped with condescension. "You hired me. You trusted me with his care. You have no right to question my methods." "Methods?" Emily echoed incredulously. "What you're doing isn't care. It's manipulation. I have to do what's right for my father, even if it means confronting you." Sarah's eyes narrowed, the mask of kindness slipping for a brief moment. "You're making a mistake, Emily. If you keep digging, you'll only hurt yourself and your father more." "Is that a threat?" Emily asked, her pulse quickening. "Because I won't back down. I will protect him, even if it means exposing you." With that, Emily turned away, her heart racing as she walked back into her father's room. She needed to gather her thoughts, to formulate a plan that would ensure Robert's safety. But the confrontation had shaken her, and doubt crept in. Was she truly being paranoid, or was there a real threat lurking beneath the surface? As she sat down beside her father, she looked into his eyes, searching for any sign that he understood her concerns. "Dad," she began softly, "I need to talk to you about Sarah. I know it's difficult for you to communicate, but I need you to try." Robert blinked slowly, the gears of his mind clearly working hard to process her words. "Emily, what's Sarah?" he stammered, struggling to form a coherent response. "I know it's hard, but I think she's been manipulating your medication. It's making you feel worse than you should. I need you to trust me," she implored, her voice trembling with emotion. "Can you try to tell me how you're feeling when she's here?" He looked at her, the confusion in his eyes deepening. "Feel bad with Sarah?" Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. It was a small victory that he could convey that much, but it wasn't enough. "Yes, Dad. I need you to let me know if anything feels off. I'm going to do everything I can to protect you. Just promise me you'll try to communicate with me, no matter how hard it is." Robert nodded slowly, and for a moment, Emily felt a flicker of hope. She needed to dig deeper into Sarah's past to gather evidence against her. She stood, determination flooding her veins as she left the room, her mind set on uncovering the truth. That night, as she sat in front of her laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating her anxious features, Emily typed Sarah's name into the search bar. She hit enter and waited, her heart pounding with anticipation. The results flooded the screen, and she scrolled through article after article. At first, it seemed mundane, nothing alarming. But then, she stumbled upon a forum filled with testimonials from families who had hired Sarah in the past. The accounts were troubling, to say the least. Manipulation, one family reported. Unexplained changes in medication, another stated. My mother became more withdrawn and confused under her care. Emily's breath quickened as she read through the horror stories. Each sentence confirmed her worst fears. This wasn't just a case of paranoia. There were real patterns of manipulation and deceit. She took screenshots, documenting everything, her resolve hardening with each new revelation. After hours of research, Emily leaned back in her chair, her mind racing with possibilities. She had to confront Sarah again, but this time, she would be armed with evidence. It was a risky move, but she couldn't continue to let her father be vulnerable to someone who had clearly exploited others before. As she prepared for bed, she felt a mix of dread and anticipation. The next day would be crucial. She would confront Sarah with her findings, and she hoped that it would be the turning point in this harrowing ordeal. Emily knew she was stepping into dangerous territory, but the love for her father fueled her bravery. She would not allow anyone to jeopardize his well-being, not again. Emily sat at her father's desk, a mountain of notes and documents spread before her like a battlefield. The unease that had settled in her chest since Sarah's arrival was now a restless storm. Each tick of the clock echoed her growing anxiety. She scribbled down every suspicious incident she could recall, every odd behavior, and every moment that felt off-kilter since the caregiver had entered their lives. The pages began to fill with her observations, each line a testament to her determination to protect Robert. "Okay, Emily," she muttered under her breath, "you can do this. Just a bit more evidence." And then, her voice trailed off as she contemplated the uncertain confrontation that lay ahead. She felt a mixture of fear and resolve. Emily knew she had to confront Sarah, but the prospect terrified her. What if Sarah turned aggressive? What if she retaliated against Robert? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the window, Emily's resolve hardened. She grabbed her phone and took photos of her notes, ensuring she had digital copies in case evidence was needed. The clicking sound of the camera felt like a small victory against the shadows of doubt that loomed over her. That night, however, brought unexpected turmoil. The house was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that made Emily's skin prickle. She had just settled onto the couch with a book when a loud crash echoed from Robert's room. Heart racing, she jumped to her feet and rushed toward the sound. "Dad," she called, panic rising in her voice. She barely registered the way her heart pounded in her chest as she reached the door. The sight that greeted her inside the room was chilling. Sarah stood over Robert, her voice raised, the tension palpable in the air. "Stop trying to resist, Robert. You need to listen to me." Sarah's tone was sharp, filled with an unsettling mix of frustration and control. Robert's face contorted in distress, his eyes wide with fear, struggling to communicate his discomfort. Emily stepped into the room, instinct kicking in. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice stronger than she felt. Sarah turned abruptly, her expression shifting from anger to a mask of calm. "Oh, Emily, I was just trying to help your father understand that he needs to take his medication properly. He's being difficult," she replied, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness. Difficult, Emily echoed, her eyes narrowing. It looks like you're the one being difficult, Sarah. Why are you yelling at him? Robert's eyes darted from Emily to Sarah, and Emily could see the conflict in his expression. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but his condition made it impossible. She rushed to his side, her heart breaking as she saw the distress etched on his face. Dad, I'm here. You're safe, Emily reassured him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Just breathe. She turned her gaze back to Sarah, her voice steadying. You need to leave. Now. Emily, I think you're overreacting, Sarah said, her voice low, but the threat was palpable. I've been nothing but dedicated to your father's care. You're just confused. Confused. Emily shot back. I'm not confused. I've been watching you, and I know something isn't right. The room crackled with tension, the weight of Emily's words hanging heavily in the air. Sarah's smile faded, revealing a flicker of annoyance. You're being irrational. You don't understand the nuances of caregiving. I understand enough to know that you shouldn't be yelling at him, Emily retorted, her protective instincts flaring. This isn't about you, Sarah. It's about my father's well-being. For a moment, silence engulfed the room as Sarah's facade began to crack. The glint of anger in her eyes was replaced with something darker, something that made Emily's stomach churn. Is that what you think? Sarah asked, her voice low, almost taunting. You think you can just waltz in here and dictate how I care for him? You have no idea what I've sacrificed to be here. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Sacrificed, she echoed. What do you mean by that? But Sarah's expression shifted again, the previous irritation morphing into a chilling calmness. You're so naive, Emily. Caring for someone like him isn't just about making sure he takes his pills. It's about understanding the bigger picture. What bigger picture? Emily demanded, her heart racing. What are you talking about? The tension in the room reached a breaking point as Robert, who had been silently watching the exchange, let out a strained groan. Emily turned to him, her heart aching at the sight of her father's distress. I'm here, Dad. I won't let her hurt you, she whispered, feeling a surge of protectiveness wash over her. In that moment, Sarah took a step closer, her demeanor shifting again, now almost pleading. You don't understand, Emily. I'm trying to help him. I'm the only one who truly knows how to handle his condition. You're too emotionally involved to see it clearly. Emotionally involved? Emily scoffed, anger flaring within her. You're manipulating him, and I won't stand by and let you do that any longer. With that, she took a step forward, her body positioning itself protectively in front of Robert. You need to leave this house. I will not tolerate your behavior any longer. Sarah's eyes narrowed, and Emily could see the mask slipping further. You think you can just kick me out? I'm not going anywhere. I have a job to do. Not if it's harming my father. Emily shot back, her voice unwavering. Get out, Sarah. If you don't leave now, I will call the police. The threat hung in the air, a stark reality that made Sarah's expression harden. For a moment, it looked like she might challenge Emily, but then she seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping slightly. You really think you can protect him? She spat, venom lacing her words. You have no idea what you're up against. Try me, Emily replied, her voice steady. I will do whatever it takes to keep him safe. After a tense moment, Sarah's eyes flickered with anger, but then she seemed to collect herself. Fine, but don't think this is over. You have no idea who you're dealing with, she hissed before storming out of the room. Emily turned to Robert, who looked exhausted and frightened. She rushed to his side, taking his hand in hers. Dad, I'm so sorry you had to witness that. I promise I'm going to make this right. Robert met her gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Though he couldn't speak, the connection between them spoke volumes. Emily felt a flood of determination wash over her. She would not let Sarah's manipulations continue. Not now, not ever. As she sat with her father, their hands intertwined, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The confrontation had been a step forward, but she knew she needed more than just a moment of bravery. She needed a plan, one that would ensure her father's safety and expose Sarah for who she truly was. With renewed purpose, Emily vowed to gather all the information she could. The battle was far from over, and she would fight tooth and nail to protect the man she loved more than anything in the world.